All right, guys, welcome to our post 4th of July investor party, where we are talking about how we all celebrate in our own special ways to celebrate our liberties or lack thereof. Some of us like to be free and some of us like to be tied up in other ways, but we are all here celebrating the fact that we are in a country that allows us to at least have these difficult conversations. Matthew's laughing at me. Probably because he found some things he shouldn't have found the other day. So, side note, let me stop the recording for this, by the way. Pause recording. There was nothing incriminating in that whatsoever. Anyway, so hopefully you guys are enjoying that on Facebook. I don't even know if there's anybody watching on Facebook today. This is so not me. But what we're going to be talking about, and that's something I wanted you guys to, oh, here we go. Oh, that's not the right one. I do have people asking for the link. Great. What we're going to be talking about today is some stuff that I have learned, which has been very, very interesting. Now, I don't know about you guys. Some of you, I know, we've had some conversations as of late. We're learning a lot about our country's history that we did not know before, right? And I have been blessed because I'm surrounded by these amazing kids, and they are all different. Matthew identifies, we had a great conversation. He identifies as a Black American. I have Angel in my house. He's Latino. Mark is a whitewashed Guatemalan, as apparently is a thing. Ali's white, I'm white. So we have a very diverse Neapolitan ice cream of people living in our house. So we have these very interesting conversations, and they're coming from a different perspective than mine, which has been incredibly valuable for me. I've had to learn some things that, to be very frank, have been very uncomfortable for me to swallow and to digest. They've exposed something that I did not know, which was my ignorance on some of the history that I was not privy to. Conversations such as, what is white privilege, which I wasn't aware was a thing, or white fragility, or the different racial inequalities that are there. I'm not saying this to be political or to get anyone worked up, but I want you to know that this platform that we are doing, what I wanted to do with my real estate investing and how I've set this entire thing up was to use real estate to build social justice, to use real estate as a way to create change in our world, and to level the playing field and to help all populations. And I was nervous about having these discussions at first, and then I realized through this book I'm reading, The Buddha and the Badass, is that if I'm going to take a stand for something, I'm going to take a stand for it. And I'm going to welcome you to come on this journey with me. I will welcome your questions, your feedback, your insight, your agreements and your disagreements. I want to know where we are as a community so we can have these conversations, because they are important. They're important to our country. They're important to our community. They're important to us as investors and as human beings. It is our civic duty and our karmic duty to have these conversations. So I did not ask a guest on today because I had a feeling if they were going to be on, they're going to cancel because it's the 5th of July or 6th of July and they were going to be hungover from the 4th of July. So since you guys are here, we're going to have these discussions. But I want to preface this first by saying this is going to be an educational forum. Everyone here is allowed to express what they've learned as long as they are open to listening to what other people are saying as well. Can we all agree to do that if you're on this call right now? Can you say yes for me? I'm going to unmute you. I need you to audibly say yes, please.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, I will count that as everyone saying yes. If you're watching on Facebook, you've been warned, you can also participate. I want to hear what's going on. Now, I have been doing, oh good, notifications on Facebook. People are saying yes, that's kind of cool, I think. Where's it going? Who's saying stuff? Anyway, so we're back. So anyway, we're trying to make this going. So, things I did not know. This was a very interesting 4th of July because everything that's been happening with COVID and the riots and all the stuff that's going on, the elections, it's been very, it was a very, how do I word it? Conflicting social experiment. It was a very conflicting Independence Day because there was so much I did not know. And I'm okay with not knowing it. I'm not okay continuing to not know it. That's been the hard part for me. And I have had several conversations with people who I consider very close friends. And we've had some disagreeing opinions. And I've had to learn to meet them where they are. Now, I want to know by show of hands, or by, no, just tell in the chat box or shout it out. Do you feel that real estate is a fair asset class available to everybody? Yes or no?
Is it a fair? Okay. Yeah. No.
Okay, now why do you say that, Carlos?
Well, I'm not sure. I figured that. I thought, I don't know what I'm saying. Just trying to be positive.
I appreciate
I
that.
mean, lots of different people from a lot of different backgrounds have taken the chance and succeeded in real estate. So I would have to say, yeah, that it's equal opportunity.
Okay.
That's true.
I would say no, because I actually was just taking a realtor required class, and we had to watch about 15-minute video that was called, I'll find the YouTube video. It was really interesting that it was even showing how FHA, when it first came out as a form of helping provide funds to all classes and all racial backgrounds, was very discriminatory. And it wasn't until they put the insurance security from the government behind it in the 50s, after like almost 30 years after it's been introduced, that it became much fairer. But there's what's called redlining, right? Which is where banks would literally say, I'm not going to give any money to this particular neighborhood. So we've seen lots of aspects where I feel like, and that's just happening. There's still ways that things are like, of discriminatory things are still happening today. And some of the things we were talking about in this fair housing class were not just things that were happening, 100 years ago during the first Great Depression. It was things that are happening within the last 2 years. There were examples of that even in the most progressive and like liberal and largest cities and diverse cities like New York City. We were seeing examples of people being discriminated against for rentals, for purchasing of homes, all sorts of things. So in a traditional sense, granted, like I do believe that there's ways to educate people to let them know that you can have real estate assets and you can build your wealth through real estate. It's accessible to everyone, but we've been structured in a way through our education system to think you need to have like loads of money to be able to do that, until our education has taught us that we can have little to no money to pretty much propel ourselves. The social consensus is that you have to put 20% down, have X amount of money in your account, this have a credit score, and it does add.
I agree.
To other backgrounds.
So
Definitely, I agree with all of that stuff. But I also think that's like that whole creature from Jekyll Island thing and some of the others. That's social construct of. I mean, that's for everybody across the board. Like the rich are not. I mean, we are not financially educated in school. We are, we're taught basics and stuff like that, but we're not taught finances. I mean, we kind of learn that. Like that's one of those things that you have to learn on your own to get that. So if that is the way, if that is what everyone is thinking, is like, well, you have to put 20% down.
Well, let's go back
again. It's people not necessarily getting financially educated on situations. But I mean, I do think that there can be racial bias inside the real estate realm. I think it comes down to individuals. I think it comes down to assholes that just don't want to lend to somebody in general. But overall, I do think that real estate is a fair thing across the board and accessible to anybody with knowledge.
So I'm not disagreeing with you. In fact, I'm agreeing with you until we get further back than 1913. Okay, now this is something I have learned and I want to share with you guys because it came up in an interesting conversation I had this weekend with one of my dear friends who I respect because there are very few people that I can have an intellectual conversation with that I always find interesting and engaging that I can have for hours. Usually I spend my time, present company excluded, everyone. Usually I spend my time having conversations that I would consider just verbal diarrhea, where people are just talking to just spew their own nonsense. They're not actually edifying, but that's the other 99% of the world, right? So how you have conversations that actually push you forward and make you think. And this individual he's an amazing friend, he's an amazing man, but just like everybody else, he's human. Now, let me set the stage. I was having a conversation with him, who is an immigrant from Brazil, came here illegally, became legal, and continued to work his way through, got his master's, and is now doing very well. That's person number one. Person number two is one of my other best friends, who is a Vietnamese American, first generation here, physician, has done very well and has always had my back. And then you had me, born and bred white guy here in America, doing what I'm doing within my household. So we had a pretty diverse background having these conversations. And the conversation started like this. Usually, as in most of my conversations, they start about investing. And he wanted, we'll call him Sam. Sam asked me what my opinions on what I thought about slumlord, what I thought investing as a slumlord was like. Sam did not realize that a slumlord is an actual term. He thought it was just like an expression. He didn't realize it was an actual term in our investment society. So I want to know what everybody else is here. How would you define a slumlord? Class.
So someone who owns a lot of properties and is not maintaining them, and they're in a lower socioeconomic group that they're renting to. But the main thing is they're not keeping them up. They think it's okay that the people are living in that kind of situation, bathrooms that don't work, etc.
Yes, they're really just, with what you just said, they don't even have a lot of properties. They're just people who have properties that don't take care of them. They provide inhumane living conditions for the people that are there, right? So if you have a property that is being vandalized and broken down and beaten into because no one's taking care of it, are you going to want to take care of it? No. And the people living there aren't going to want to help you either, right? So it's a vicious cycle, back and forth, back and forth. But why do we have that? So there's a problem. Slumlords typically exist in the war zones, which we know as the ghettos, which is a derogatory term, believe it or not. All right. So we're going to address this right now, because in 2017, with the Tax Cut and Job Creation Act, there was something called opportunity zones. They were created through that act. And it is roughly 1/4 of the United States' lowest income neighborhoods, selected street by street by the governors of that state, that are now considered opportunity zones. These opportunity zones are incentives to get private wealth to funnel into these low-income areas and provide opportunities there by rebuilding communities. What they're intended to do is to make attractive returns for investors by removing capital gains. So what are capital gains? Well, they're tax-free profits. We're going to call it really simple, make it all what it is, right? So let's put this in an example. Let's say you bought Apple stock and you're going to sell them, and you have this profit that you're going to be taxed on. That's your capital gain. If you were to take that Apple stock, and instead of taking the profits, you reinvested into one of these opportunity zones, you are able to not pay capital gains if you hold that asset for 10 years. In other words, in order to take that property or those profits and put it into a distressed area, an approved opportunity zone, and you have to buy it the right way, by the way, but this is the theory. You put it into this say a house that is worth $50,000 and needs nearly $50,000 to improve and make livable. If you hold that home for 10 years, you will not pay taxes on the profit. If you hold it for 5 years, you get a 10% deduction on your taxes. 7 years, an additional 5%. If you hold it for the full 10 years, you pay no capital gains. On paper, this is the investment strategy of our generation. It is the cryptocurrency of real estate. It is a long play that has a socio-economic impact. The idea is that private groups of investors go into a certain area and we create jobs, opportunities, and businesses. You cannot invest into assets of vice. That are things like strip clubs and liquor stores. So things that bring on problems. You know, so pretty much anything that has, how I define it, this is not necessarily what it is, but this is how I think of it. If it has a mafia ring attached to it or a drug ring attached to it, or like a cash-based laundering potential, you can't do that, right? Which is what's happening right now. Like you said, you have a lot of, we're living in Miami. You have a lot of property, I live in Miami area. You have people who make a lot of money in the drug trade or cartels, and they will take them and they'll buy laundromats, or they'll buy other businesses they can funnel money through and launder them, right? So you can't, they're saying no instruments of vice to prevent things like that happening. Am I making sense, guys? Is that, you follow me so far? Okay. Facebook, let me know if you're following me so far so you understand what this is. Again, I'm giving you like a very basic blanket overview of opportunity zones, all right? Now, I started explaining this to Sam. Remember, we were having a conversation about slumlords, and I turned it into opportunity zones. This is a positive way of impacting a community. But this is where it started to change. Sam, with the best of intentions, said that he is all about going to these neighborhoods and tearing down their houses and building something new and fresh and starting over. I want to know how you guys feel about that. Please share.
I would rather he would be doing rent-to-own situations and helping the people rebuild the community. Because once you tear down and rebuild, you've paid a lot for the lot or lots, and now you're gonna price them out of the rentals.
Very well said, Pamela. Anybody else?
No, I agree with Pamela.
So he's
I
like,
mean,
all right,
I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, I agree with her that way, you know, in that respect.
You're right. So most people think of gentrification. So what is gentrification? Is when a new population moves into an area and they make things nice and pretty and it raises property values. The problem with gentrification is those people who live there have no place else to go and they're pushed further and further out. So is that a problem?
I'm sorry, what was that, gender? What?
Gentrification, regentrification, when something is regentrified, right? So gentrification comes from the same root as generation, right? So if you think, yeah, she wrote, Stephanie has it right there. Google it. Gentrification, so communities have cycles, okay? So let's talk about the real estate cycle. It goes through the same cycle as a human life. Brand new, baby, fresh, no experience, full of potential. This is your neighborhood of new construction. Then as you move in there and you develop your life, then you get into smaller families, you know, as you age, so does the house. And then things need to be upgraded, right? But now it's starting to be an established neighborhood. An established neighborhood has trees that are looking great, homes that are slightly older, but they're well maintained, the roads are nice, everybody's happy, you're aging, everything is getting better and better. Follow me so far? Great. As you now get older, you've been in the house now for 40 years. You're a grandparent. Your kids have moved away, your grandkids are far away, and now you're getting older and you can't maintain this house that you were once in. So the lawn gets overgrown, the roof starts getting damaged, and you're starting to ask for help. But now you're on a fixed income. So you have to choose the amenities you can do with your home, like what type of improvements you can do. Ultimately, the homes have more wear and tear that you can't keep up with, and that neighborhood goes into decline. Then regentrification comes. Someone goes, oh my God, this once beautiful neighborhood who had its heydays back in the 80s, this needs our help to come bring it back up to code and make it the next Mecca to come back again. And the gays move in. First, usually it's the lesbians, they're better with hammers than we are. And they move in and they start boarding up the windows, they start making things happen, they make things functional. Then the homosexuals move in and we make them pretty. We make sure the landscaping's nice. We paint them fun colors. We make sure that the flower beds are perfect. You add gray to every wall and everyone wants to move in there because we have great style. And then the single family move in. The young families move back in because they're going to be close enough to their parents now. And they are like, well, this is a cute enough area where I'm close enough to mom and dad so I can help them, but I'm not so close they annoy me. And guess what? We've got gay neighbors. I feel safer having my children here. Oh, and now we're going to have higher property values, which means we have higher school taxes. So the school systems go up. But the people who are already living there are now having to move because they can't afford the property taxes. Do you guys follow all that just now? Carlos? That is regentrification in a nutshell. Taught to you in the way that only I would be able to teach it to you. So, I'm gonna put this on gallery view because I want to see your faces. Okay, so, regentrification. People go in there and that's when you see a lot of places doing flips, a lot of places doing, they also do hold strategies, things like that. But what I want you to understand is that when I was talking to Sam and he talked about tearing down that house, that is not an uncommon perspective. The sad thing is when you tear down a property and you do not take into accord the community, you are, in essence, erasing that community's history. It made me think about this, this amazing show that I've told you guys about that I hope you guys watch. It's called Home. It's on Apple TV. It's only about 6 episodes and they're all incredible, all of them. The second episode is about this gentleman whose name I cannot remember, and I didn't have time to rewatch it before today, but he is a Black man who is an urban planner and also the most incredible visual artist. Oh my God, grew up on the south side of Chicago. And he talked about this very problem, how people with money would move into their area and knock down their buildings, thus erasing their history like they never existed there. These are the same neighborhoods that were the birthplace of jazz. These are the same neighborhoods where you had the civil rights movement grassroots campaign walk through. The same neighborhoods that started the grassroots campaign for Barack Obama's election. Now, I'm not getting political. I just want you to see that there is history. You understand, right? There is history in these neighborhoods. They may not be your history, but they are a history. And when you go into a neighborhood and you erase it, you're in essence telling that population that they never mattered, but your bottom line matters. So this kept us going down a very interesting conversation. I'm sure you can understand this, right? So as I'm sharing this with you guys, to this point, what have you taken away thus far? James, Max, Bo, Teresa?
You can't erase history. You can't erase history. You know, I think you can learn from history. You know, you erase history, things are going to happen again. That's my take. Okay,
So
you got
here's
to
a
learn.
question.
You have to learn from history.
I'm coming
Here's
back.
a question, right? So all right, so we understand now that everything is a cycle, right? Like we know that things are in cycles. You know, we know that, you know, a neighborhood is good, it's going to decline over time, and then somebody's going to come in and have to lift it back up again, and then it's going to decline. So like we know that all these things work in cycles, like, I mean, history, all kinds of things. So I guess the question is then, how do you know, an opportunity zone, I mean, they're trying to go in and improve the area, right? Which is basically gentrification into an area that's now going to be tax-free versus not. So it's more of an incentive. But what do you do? You know what I mean? It's like what is the fair thing to do? You know, how do you make it fair to everybody? And you can't, I mean, taxes are taxes. You know, all these things is like, how do you do it? You know, there's.
Jessica, I really like that you're bringing this up because I think that's what we want to talk about the most is that we don't have the answers, right? Because there is not a good answer yet. But somewhere there have to be better answers. And I think that it can come from these kinds of minds, the minds that we're bringing together on these kinds of calls, the kind of minds that we're bringing together on Investor Party, people who want to learn how to make their lives better, but so many of you who have also expressed to us that you want to help make other people's lives better, right? So we don't have the answers. Like, I don't have the answers, Jacob doesn't have the answers, but it means enough to us that we know we want to provide the space as fertile soil for all of your seeds of ideas, you know, for all of the ideas of ways that we could possibly come up with new programs and new ideas, or ways that we can also rebuild these communities instead of just tearing them down. So I appreciate you being the one to bring it up, but that's what we want to do here. I want to hear what everybody has to say. I want to hear ideas that might sound crazy inside your head. We're never going to be able to develop those until we're all stepping up and coming up with any crazy idea we can think of to talk about with these other brilliant minds.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, I had a conversation, and speaking of all this, brought this conversation that I had with this old man a couple weeks ago, maybe a month, and he was talking about how he didn't do anything to the outside of his house so that he didn't raise his property taxes. So then why don't, go into these neighborhoods and, to help the neighbors out, you're not doing anything to the outside of the house. You just do all your nice stuff on the inside so that you can bring up the rental value, because it's a nice house inside, but the outside is still looking like
Part of the neighborhood.
Property value. You still get your tax advantage, rather than making the outside look real nice, the nicest one in the neighborhood. And now all of a sudden they come in for the next assessment, it's raising the value, and then everybody's hurt.
Right.
I don't know. I
mean,
may I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Perfect. Well, I think what's really important is intent, right? So like when you're going into these, like into any investment, like what's your intent? Is it to go in quick and make profit, or is your intent to build up the community, to build up the people? And if you have those as two focuses, you're always going to be thinking, what's the best way that I can help provide value to the community too? And whether that's like getting involved in, every community is going to have, they're going to have a chamber of commerce. They're going to have political groups, and they're going to have planning groups that they have an intention, and usually it's based around the people to a certain degree, but it's also about building up the community, improving it, improving the value of it. And I think there's a collective way to deliver value to the people that live there, and also build up and improve, the real estate and make money doing it. But it requires asking questions,
That's it. That's what I was hoping you were going to say right there.
Yeah.
Yes. This is what I want you to say that James just said, that will piggyback and hopefully clarify something Carlos said, and that Jessica and both and Elise have also said. You have to ask questions. But who do you ask? You have to ask that community.
Right.
If you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people. That's an old expression that we've all learned from Napoleon Hill. So we know that is something that was tried and true, and it makes great sense, and it's been repeated over and over and over and over again. If you ask that community what they want and how you can serve them, guess what? They'll probably tell you. And if you listen to what they have to say, you can provide it. Now, this is something that's interesting that the gentleman in Chicago did, which I found beautiful. God, I need to know his name. He took his home, and it just looks like a traditional brownstone on the outside. And on the interior, completely remodeled it and turned it into a library filled with just Black authors that represented that community. It's gorgeous. He calls it the Reading House. It is the most tasteful interior space I've ever seen. Like I said, he's also a visual artist. He made all the furniture and the treatments. It is classy, masculine, and that's a hard thing to pull off. Now, not only did he do that, but he bought the neighbor's house. And he turned that into the music house, where it is literally the largest collection of African American music in record that has been donated to one population. And due to that, people can go in their community and watch and listen to music from every artist as long as they want in that population. Now he's starting to get more and more donors. From there, he went down the street and bought an old church that they were going to tear down. Iconic, beautiful architecture. Changed everything inside and turned it into a cinema so that Black film creators could go in and share their vision and their art where they couldn't get anything else. It's also now an event space. He also converted a bank into a place where they could all go as a community to learn how to cook together and feed others. This one person, one man, has taken something, a problem that we have, by erasing the history of others, acknowledging that as a problem, and took his education and his position and his influence and created spaces, plural, that edified his community. Is that not absolutely incredible? Do you think investing in things like that, do you think he's getting a return on his investment? Absolutely. Now here's the cool part. Is he only getting a monetary return, or is he getting more? And what do you think that is, class?
I think that he's getting more because he's providing exposure to his own community, but it's also providing a legacy for his own self and his community that he clearly has a passion for, and just to remind them that there was greatness that came from them, and that can still keep growing moving forward. Because sometimes you think you're in a certain area and jazz would have never been the thing that is jazz today, because it came from a time that when it was first created was not for, it was just for that, just like that sect of people and understanding. And then it evolved to people being like, oh, this is really great. Oh my God, I want to have more of it because of exposure. So I think he's providing exposure and in a sense of not allowing his legacy and the legacy of his own community to be lost.
He's creating a culture, right? He's nurturing the culture. You're right. I agree 100% with everything you said, Stephanie. This is the type of investing that I want to be a part of. It isn't just about the money. It's about the good. You do not have to have a lot of money to invest or to make an impact. You have to have a vision and you have to have a team. He did not do this on his own. And in fact, he didn't do it while he was young. He was actually in his late 30s when he started doing these things, actually early 40s. And he has done so much in 5 years. This is where I want you guys to hear me very clearly. In this day and age, where there's so much division, there is so much opportunity to heal if we work together. But you cannot do this on your own. Communities heal communities. It has to take that much action. But it takes one person to build a community. In this community, I know I'm the nucleus. You have your own communities, all of you. And you can bring this knowledge to them as well. If we all bound together, there are 12 people, 11 if we take me out of this equation on this phone call, plus what I have watching on Facebook right now. And this is without any advertising or any actual link that worked. So if we all had 11 people that we worked with, then automatically We have 122 people. Alexa, what's 11 times 11?
In Pompano Beach, it's 83 degrees Fahrenheit with showers. Today, you can look for some sun and thunderstorms.
Thank you. I was close. 121. Alexa, shut up. I didn't ask the weather. Anyway, so there would be 121 people that would have this conversation. And then it continues to expound. It starts to compound, right? So I want you to understand that when we're talking about investing, we're trying to build communities. This is what we're trying to do. This is not just about flipping one house or buying one mobile home or getting one apartment complex. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. It's got to be bigger than us. If we are going to do what we are meant to do, which is use our knowledge and use our insight in our financial education to heal this country, we have to think bigger than ourselves and go where it hurts. And it is not comfortable. Growth is never comfortable. Learning this stuff is stressful. Understanding that I didn't know a lot about money and I had no idea, that's why I was staying in poverty, that was uncomfortable. Knowing that I have white privilege, that I didn't understand what it meant, that I'm still learning what it means every single day is uncomfortable. Knowing that my friends who I love and I care about have been hurt and beaten down so far that I can't even see it is uncomfortable. Not knowing what reparations mean is uncomfortable. Not understanding that for 401 years, the government has actually kept a segment of our population so far down that people like Sam, who was an illegal immigrant into our country, has been able to find wealth and success faster than people who've had their family generations here for over 4 centuries because the government was involved in keeping them down. That is uncomfortable. But to know that there are opportunities here where we can actually change that situation, that is powerful. Opportunity zones.
And it's powerful. It's really powerful too that regardless of what you want to do and how you want to build your business, it's not something that you just think, oh, that doesn't pertain to me, because it starts just in yourself and in your own business. It starts with being able to do business in socially sustainable ways. And we grow together by working together and by really just taking the time to make sure that any business that we do is business that's good for everybody that's involved, because it can be. And it's changing conversation about just doing business that's all for profit and all for yourself, and it's profit centered and not people centered. But you can still make really good profits by having a people centered business. No matter where you are in your business, you can make the kind of decisions, even if it's just for your 2 employees, to make it a people centered business, or a business that other businesses want to do business with, you know? What do you guys think?
By the way, Derek, I was not the one typing, thank you. Real estate is people. And that's what I want you guys to remember. Even in all of this, real estate is people. And I agree with what Lisa's saying 100%. What I want you guys to understand is that I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to be talking about this a lot. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a series on this because it's something that people don't realize. And I want you to understand that we can make a difference, but it only happens when we are no longer complacent. Martin Luther King said this so brilliantly, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher it. And I'm so sorry to all my friends who know this better than I do, and I'm learning, okay? But he said that it's not the whites who are out there trying to hurt the members of the KKK they have to fear. It's the whites who are actually sitting on the sidelines and they're comfortable being silent and letting the status quo continue that we have to worry about, because those are who are going to kill them anyway. And I don't want to be one of those individuals. Here are some things I've learned that I want you to understand. We'll go simple. Moving from present time backwards. In the last economic recession, the Black population lost 53% of their net worth, while the white population lost 16%. Prior to that, banks like Wells Fargo were holding wealth building seminars at Black churches where they gave the parishioners a commission for every member of their community that actually enrolled and got a home, which is synonymous with building wealth. And they, no matter how good their credit score was, they were getting subprime loans with higher interest rates with adjustable rate mortgages, no matter if they had an 800 credit score or not. Thus, they were now still being screwed. Back up even further. You had redlining, which meant that banks would not lend in low-income areas, and they were preventing Black individuals from moving into white neighborhoods. And not just Black individuals, but anybody who is not white into those neighborhoods, keeping them down. We can go further and further back. And the last thing I'm going to let you guys think about is right after the Civil War. General Sherman actually had a meeting with 20 Black leaders where they actually asked a question: what do we need to do to help you make a difference in your life? And they said, the way to help us make a difference is to give us land, because they knew the secret to wealth was through real estate, and it was only allowed to reach white people. But they said that the way to help us change our situation is through land. 4 days later, they passed Referendum 15, which set aside hundreds of thousands of acres of land for freed, enslaved individuals. This was signed into law the day before Abraham Lincoln took his second inauguration. Weeks later, he was assassinated. And his predecessor, Andrew Jackson, quickly reversed that because there was a backlash that said from the white demographic, well, what about our rights? And in the law, in the newspaper ads, it said that we were favoring the rights of the Negro over the rights of the white. It has been a constant problem in our country when one social class stands up for themselves and gets something, that the instant backlash comes from the privilege and says, well, what about our rights? It's time we recognize that that is a problem and a pattern in our history, right, Carlos? If we don't learn from our history, we never get it. The problem is, history is constantly being rewritten by people that have privilege. And I'm going to use my voice as best I can to help those who do not have that privilege and try to make a difference. The interesting thing I'm learning from my kids is that that population won't necessarily listen to me. And I don't blame them because of the color of my skin. But I'm going to help the ones I can and hopefully empower them to give that message, and I will support them. I hope you guys have learned something today. I hope you guys are inspired to do something. I hope you've learned about opportunity zones. I hope you've learned a little bit about lending practices and about some of the history in our country. I want to continue doing this. If you think this would be valuable, please let me know, and I will make this public. It's something I feel very passionate about. And again, if you don't want to be a part of that, that's fine. I'm going to make it its own separate calls so you guys can check in and learn, and that's fine. When you're ready, these conversations will be there for you to reference. But I want to have you guys help me research and find this knowledge so we can get it out there. Would you guys like to help me with this mission? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you so you can say yes or no.
First, I'm supportive and I want to be a better ally to the situation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hector.
You know, I support you, Bill.
Thank you, Jessica.
Jacob, I'm totally, behind it, and I think you're beautiful for even creating the medium to do it. So I honor you for just doing that, setting it up.
Thank you, James. Let's see where this goes. It's going to go a lot further if we all go together, right? So, there. I'm standing for something. You guys are too. We're not going to have the most friends, but we're going to have good friends. On that note, guys, it is exactly 4 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions? No? Then I will be posting an actual link for Wednesday's call on investorparty.com, so you guys can check it out there. I'll also put it on the group page and the Facebook page. And if you guys have any questions, please reach out. Let's make a difference and let's take a stand. I value all of you, and I look forward to seeing you on our next investor party. Be blessed, guys. Mwah. Support each other.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.